Good morning, you crazy cats. Right, I've got a few things I want to go through today. I'm going to show you exactly what from the start of the video, because I've had a few more complaints that I don't explain everything before getting started. So what I'm going to show you firstly is my fantastic new setup, which the workflow is already on GitHub. And what it is fixing faces at distance. It's better than other stuff I've tried, and I'll explain it shortly in detail. But just as an example, I'm going from, this was Bernini originally, I believe. Yeah, original Bernini. You can see I didn't get very good quality. It was up to 832 by 456, something like that. So 480, you know, 16:9, something like that. And I've been going the last few days through all my Bernini stuff and just redoing it in Minimax. With the workflow that I'm going to show you. But the result I got from that, and I got it by accident, and I'll explain it, through Minimax, was this. Like, look at those faces. Now that was shoving the other one through it. There's some changes that occurred, but I honestly don't mind. So if you need to keep it really tight, you'd probably need to look at depth map, fixing it and stuff like that. But I don't. I just need, you know, roughly the right things. But the quality of the faces, given how small they are, yeah, there's a bit of explosion there, but look at the size of this entire screen and the size of their heads. Those faces are holding together for the most part. As it moves, as it changes, there's a bit of blistering. But this is what I want to show you today. That's the main reason for this video. But what I will also show you, I'm going to talk a bit about memory, because people aren't using it in a way that helps them, benefits them, and they need something like this. And then I'm going to talk quickly about that and tell you about what's going on with that. So this is the new workflow. I'll have it available in the link. It's the one that is currently called Single Sampler Detailer, and it's on version 11. I'm going to be getting rid of the dual sampler, even though this came from it, because one thing I found with the dual sampler was you'd run your image through first, and then the idea was the second sampler would do a low step denoise and tidy it up. But it didn't work. It created this sort of jittering slow motion, which I didn't like. But I liked the fact that it could get it much tidier. And so I ripped the first sampler out, kept just the second sampler, and just shoved the video into it, and it worked schmick. It was perfect. And so that's what I've been using. And now I've been kind of like tweaking it and working it out and testing it on all my content. And that's the workflow you see here, which is that single sampler, or whatever I called it. Single sampler detailer. It'll be in the GitHub link. Now what it does, let's just show you. You're basically going through one sampler, and I use STE with beta 57. You can use what you want. I test them occasionally, but the main thing is it's using 3 steps with a light XLOR, I'll show you in a minute, and 0.4, anywhere between 0.3 if you want a little bit of light changing, but it'll fix the face up beautifully, and 0.045 if you want a bit more heavy changing. But I found 0.3 generally to be all I need, depending on what I'm doing, how hard I want to hit it. But there's a lot of notes in here, because basically what you run into is the ohm issue. And for me on a 3060 card, I can get, now this is assuming you're doing it an aspect ratio like 16:9. Yeah, I can get 124 frames 5 seconds at about 1920. Now this will depend on how many images you're shoving in, how much media you're shoving in it as well. And what you're using is an imported video. So basically, I should have said that at the beginning. Basically, create your video elsewhere and then bring it in here. Now, you can create your video in Minimax, which I probably will be doing when I get to that stage. I've currently just been using my old videos and fixing them up, the ones that I wasn't happy with on the last project before I stopped research. And it fixed it all up beautifully using Minimax, using this workflow. But you can make it in Minimax, and that's the turbo one, Turbo LoRa version 27. That one is the one I'm currently using here, and that's here. But you can use that for creating them as well, and then shove it in here, or use LTX, or use Bernini, or use anything. It won't really matter. You'll fix it up in here. And this really fixes faces at distance. Now, one thing to mention about it is, depending if the inbound video is huge, you're going to want to resize it down and shrink it down to what works based on where you roam. If your resize image is 832, and that's actually what I'll be doing in the future, is making the structural video like exactly what I did with LTX, make the structural video at a low resolution like 832 by whatever, or 960 if I really feel pushing it. Like, low resolution doesn't matter. All these that I've been doing this with come out of Bernini at 832 by 480 roughly. But when they're that small, then you want to bump them up, and you want to do it not by resizing, but by using your upscaler of choice. And I find this one, if you've got an NVIDIA card, really good. So, and then I'm just changing this basically and working out if this was 832 and I've got 121 frames or up to 124, I could probably do 1920. So I'll do it, I'll multiply it by whatever in there to get it to that. 198 frame, sorry, 190, I've got brain parts today. 192 frames, 24 frames per second, which Minimax is roughly 8 seconds long. 16.9, I'm getting about 1664 on the long edge. Now these are finishing in 20 minutes. So it's also, because it's 3 steps, and I am using, I'm using Kid's Eyes in there. Now I was swapping, changing between other ones, and then, you know, 10 days in, I thought I'll go and check some others and see what's improved. I downloaded the new Kid's Eye one. I checked it against silver oxides. I checked it against, actually I didn't check it against the other ones. I just checked it against a few, and they all look the same to me. So, and Kid's Eye's early one, I think everyone said keep it at 0.5. I have. I don't change this. Once I get it working, I'd leave it in, because during the research phase, you need to know all the variables, and so you need to try and standardize where you can, and to be honest, it gives me enough. But with 3 steps, and the chunks here I'll talk about at some point, I'm actually going to test these for increase them. Apparently, according to Claude, you can go up to 64 with this, but it'll slow the whole process down, but it'll reduce your rooms, but I've yet to test that. But yeah, because of the light Laura, when this was in the double sampler thing, he had it at 1 step, but I find it doesn't really do enough. So I haven't tested it recently, but I put it at 3 steps, and the whole thing finishes in 20 minutes for all of these, because I have to reduce the resolution when I've got more frames, when it's longer, otherwise it will loom. So generally most of them take about 20 minutes to complete, and to be honest, most of that is spent VAE encoding. I don't know why that thing takes so long for videos, but it does. Is it? Yeah, but anyway, so that's there. Another thing I've noticed with this, you have to unplug the audio if there's no audio in the original video. But as a couple of people have been asking me, I don't mess with audio. I don't care about audio in the videos. The only thing I do care about is dialogue, and I've not looked at that yet. And I will be talking about that later when I look at it. But for now, I've just left this in there. That is plugged into the output, or unplugged currently, because if there's no audio in there and you try in your inbound video and you have that plugged in, it errors at the moment, which I don't think it used to do, but it does now, and I'm not bothered fixing it. I just unplugged it. Easier. So this isn't making use of audio. I don't know what quality audio you'll get. If you're wanting to transfer the audio, I'd suggest plugging that straight in to the end, but you also probably need it to not change mouth movements or things. I haven't tested that, admittedly. Now, one thing is kind of weird is the fact that we're doing it as a denoise, and everything is based on the size of the video you set coming in when you upscale or resize it, and then everything you're doing is here, but everything's sizing is here. So what do we set this at? Well, what I basically did was set it to what we know this model is trained at, which is actually 1344768, I believe. But I just leave it at that. I haven't changed it for the whole run, but admittedly I've been in 16:9 aspect ratio. And I do change this. So if my inbound video is 121 frames, I'll set that to 5 seconds. If my inbound video is 241 frames, I'll set that to 10 seconds. But when I've forgotten to do that, it hasn't made a difference, which is also kind of weird. Now, the one thing I have been doing is generally doing good prompts, but what I found with, you know, getting the prompt guide and working it all out, but what I found with just the fixing faces at distance, this kind of low step, low denoise version, I don't really need to give it a full prompt. So all I'm doing is giving it the targeted images if they're relevant, and naming it by the same name convention we see here, which is ref image 0. So here I've got a bus in ref image 0 and I've got my man in ref image 1, and these are all disabled because they're nothing to do with this shot. And then my prompt is saying from ref image 0, a modern bus that says Victoria. See, there's my spelling mistake, and it did it wrong the first time, and it actually did it exactly like I asked. I had to change it. Has stopped at the bus stop in the snow from the F1, an older man, la 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 la. You get the idea. Anyway, you're describing these, important. There's notes in here, everything you need. I don't use the clean VRAM in this setup. I am going to be tweaking this because something I discovered. I did post about this on a comment on Reddit. Now this is really important, this thing. This is this. Let me just show you, and I'll do another video on this because I've talked about it before, but the importance of it I can't stress enough for you. It is monitoring outside of Comfort UI all your memory and all your GPU stuff and the behavior. And what you discover, you start to learn, you get a feel for how models function. You can also see where you're wasting your RAM in other silly things that you really don't need. And this is happening with Minimax. And look, to me, this makes me go, hang on, I want to use the missing bit of VRAM here. I want to use that. And then when I'm getting ooms, when I set these resolution wrong, it's actually happening right there. There's usually a spike with a little pointy bit, and then I get an oom, and then it drops. Well, it ooms and drops right off. But this one, I got it through, and you can see why, because it hasn't quite hit the roof, so it hasn't oomed. But this happens every time when it's just gone into that. And so I'm going to be investigating what I can do to bring that down, because that is the point at which I'm ooming, and then I'm losing use of 2 or 3 gig of VRAM that I could be using for higher resolution. If I was able to push this to 2.3, I could fill that up, but I can't because this one little moment of it spiking. So why this software is so important, and I have this in, but honestly I don't really use it, and I might remove it. And this is brilliant. It's from Kidchai, and it gives you a lot of information, but it's inside Comfort UI. And what people don't understand, and here's another thing, is your browser is chewing. When you sit on this screen while you're running, if you run this thing and look at that, it'll be doing that. And do you know why it's doing that now? It's doing that now because I'm recording this, but that I call GPU blap, and that will slow everything down. And when you've got your browser window open on Comfy, it does that. And when you sit on it on an empty tab, it stops doing that. If you minimize it, it still does it. So there's this kind of weird phenomena. Anyway, that's the memory stuff. So where was I? Let's now talk about, I think that covers everything. The usual model stuff is in there. Noise seed, I'll just set that fixed, and then I know where I am at each go. Another thing, I'm setting that to max in this, and I highly recommend you do, just because it'll make the best use of whatever sizes you have here, and it won't try and scale it down a bit. I haven't honestly seen that make much difference for me yet, but I leave it set like that in this one because it doesn't affect it too much. And that's pretty much all there is you need to know about this. That'll do.